This was highly recommended to me. Andrew Yang went on the Young Turks for an interview to discuss the Forward Party. And so this is a 20-minute video. I'm going to be playing it on like 1.5. I'll play on 1.25. Give some of y'all a little bit of adjustment. It's meet in the middle. But I am told that this interview is really funny. I'm really interested in what Andrew Yang has to say about the Forward Party. I'm very interested in seeing a little bit of the Tucker Carlson interview, but I haven't looked for it yet. But either way, let's rip in to the details, folks. Andrew Yang, he's not going left. He's not going right. He's going forward. Let's watch.
So on the future of our democracy, Andrew Yang. Andrew, good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you, Cenk. You too, Michael. News Nation. I got to get there.
All right, we'll have you on.
All right. So Andrew, you're starting a third party. That's super fun. But of course we've got questions about it. So there's a couple of significant hurdles to clear in starting a third party. So you're leaving the Democratic Party. I know Michael might have questions about that. I partly get it. You point out massive problems with our institutions. I totally get it. But I'm wondering if third party is the right answer. And so one of the hurdles is, generally speaking, experts believe you need about $10 million to even get on the ballot nationwide with a third party. So how do you overcome such a giant hurdle to begin with?
Thanks, Cenk. My campaign did raise $40 million last time running as a Democrat. So I'm feeling pretty enthusiastic about our ability to make the case. But the misconception is that somehow we're projecting forward to 24. We have this election coming up in 2022, and we need to be laser focused on trying to preserve our democracy in the face of really, really dire threats. And so that's where my attention is. That's where I think your attention is. We have to get ballot initiatives across the finish line in states around the country that will actually unlock our legislators from the extreme incentives that are contributing to the polarization that we can see is tearing our country apart. So my goal is ballot initiatives in 2022 and elevating candidates that are for open primaries and ranked choice voting to help improve the alignment between our representatives and the people they're supposed to represent, because right now they're representing the 20% of the most extreme people.
So yeah, now Andrew Yang, and this was my criticism of him in the primary, is that he does a really good job of explaining what the problems are, and that's it. He doesn't offer any solutions. Like the Forward Party, all right, we're gonna unlock the duopoly. How? Well, his answer, the Forward Party. But how is the Forward Party going to do these things? Again, he is great at restating the problems. I agree with the analysis here. But what the hell's going on? What are we going to do about it?
On either side, or special interests.
As Andrew, as much as starting a third party is a noble thing to do, because I think a lot of Americans, at least when polled, say that that's something they want. It's also proven very difficult for people, and the reason is, it's obvious, right? It's obvious whether it's John Anderson running against Ford and Carter, whether it's Ross Perot running against Bush and Clinton.
Just to interject again, that's always presidential. But continue, Michael.
It is presidential, but I'm talking about the challenges. The challenges are not just presidential, Andrew. The challenge of if I'm voting for alderman, if I'm voting for mayor, if I'm voting for member of Congress, I feel like even though I want to vote for that third party candidate, there's somebody who isn't getting my vote who otherwise would have, and that may facilitate a victory for the other person. How do you break that cycle? Is it possible to do something that no one, Teddy Roosevelt couldn't do it?
Well, you're describing the spoiler effect, Michael. We all know it well, that if you vote for the third party candidate, you're going to help the bad guys win. And that is purely a function of our plurality voting process. If you swap it out for ranked choice voting, which is a much more modern.
There are many states in the United States that have ranked choice voting. They're in those states, in those contests, they have Green Party candidates, third party candidates, independent candidates, and they always lose. I really don't want to be that person to tell you. Look at Maine. Maine had a Senate race, and they had a Green Party candidate, and maybe this was, I don't know what they were doing in Maine. I don't live there. But I saw a lot of Green Party activists say, Maine's got ranked choice voting. Look, we got a Green Party person for Senate. Look, Susan Collins is so bad. She's notoriously bad. She got 5% with ranked choice voting. She's got 5%, right? I don't know. I don't know what to tell y'all. Like, the ranked choice voting is not, it's not like a cheat code. It's not like people think that, oh, we're going to institute this one policy, this one quick fix, and then everything else is going to fall into place. That's not the case. That's not the case. I mean, like, it really is not the case at all.
Process that will enable people that actually vote their preferences. It helps women, it helps minority candidates. Then the spoiler effect goes away. So that would be my big argument, is that we need ranked choice voting in the worst way. And if the Republican Party had used ranked choice voting in 2016, Trump probably does not win, because he's getting, let's call it 35-40% of the vote, but he's not getting 51% of the vote. And it's unlikely that someone would have had Jeb Bush 1, Trump 2, if you know what I mean. So this is the process which we need to make that's going to improve our legislators' incentives. It's going to get rid of the spoiler effect. It's going to discourage negative campaigning. Why are we stuck with this archaic plurality voting system, particularly when we can see that it's driving this race to the extremes that's going to unfortunately hurt everyone?
Yeah, so, well, let's talk about that. I mean, look, I love ranked choice voting, and I appreciate that you went through a contest where they had that. You didn't win, and you still love the system. So that's actually very principled and great. Of course, you have the challenge that it doesn't exist in most places, but I want to go to a bigger challenge, which is the extremes that you talked about. Andrew, I don't think there are extremes anymore. First of all, I don't think there is a.
So, I mean, like, this is a great question, because like the whole pitch of the Forward Party. Now, again, he started this not left, not right, but forward. He started that during the Democratic debates. It was cringe when he first dropped it. It's still cringe. The fact that he hasn't, like, he's like obviously surrounded by yes men that aren't telling him how cringe he is. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the cringe is on purpose, but like the whole idea behind it is that like the Republicans are far right extremists, which is true, but then also the Democrats are far left extremists. What? Again, if you think that it's a both sides thing, you're stupid. Not only are you stupid, but you're genuinely a terrible person. And I think that your worldview is so disoriented and so like broken that you couldn't possibly empathize with at least 70% of the population. If you think the Democrats are far left, you are a goddamn idiot. You live in a fantasy world and you're a fucking moron. And I just, again, there is no way in hell I could take you seriously. I just can't. I just cannot do that. So let's see how he responds.
A very small sliver of extreme on the left, but it's not, I just don't think it's certainly not anything that people talk about in the mainstream press. None of what they talk about on the left is extreme. That's my opinion. I don't know if you disagree. I'm curious to hear what you think. In fact, let's start there. What do you think is extreme on the left?
Sure. Oh, so what's going on the left is a different type of distortion, which is that you have certain special interests that know that all of the Democratic legislators have to go through a Democratic primary. So it's not the general public. It's this 10 to 20% who are the most engaged, yes, but also the people.
Okay, so the extremists on the left are special interests.
The highest at stake. So this could include Big Pharma, which we're seeing. This could include teachers unions. So there are different interest groups that.
Folks, hold the motherfucking phone. Big Pharma is a left-wing extremist special interest group in the same league with teachers unions. That's right, folks. Teachers unions and Big Pharma are the extremist radical left? What? Like, I mean, again, like, the guy is dumb as fuck. He is dumb as fuck, folks.
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ.
Radical left lobbying institution, Big Pharma. Let me just watch that.
There's 10 to 20% who are the most engaged, yes, but also the people are the highest at stake. So this could include Big Pharma, which we're seeing. This could include teachers unions. So there are different interest groups that take advantage of the fact that you have a relatively narrow slice of the public that's actually going to control who gets reelected. On the right, you can definitely see the extremity loud and clear, where it's making it so everyone has to be in lockstep with Donald Trump. But I want to point out the biggest counterexample to this lockstep, which we should be celebrating and then rolling out around the country. And that is what happens right now with Senator Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, the only Republican senator to vote to impeach Trump, who is also up for re-election next year. Why did she do it? Her approval rating right now is at 6% among Alaskan Republicans. It's political suicide. So why did she do it? She did it because last year Alaska got rid of the closed party primary. So she too can take her case to 51% of Alaskans and say, look, I'm my own person, I'm my own judgment. And now she has a fighting chance. If we change the incentives, then we can actually make it so that legislators will become more reasonable and less extreme overnight.
Yeah, so the Murkowski argument's the Murkowski argument's great. She also won as a write-in candidate, so she's an unusual senator to begin with. And so I guess I want to follow what Cenk asked there with the extremes, right? Because do you think that, and I'm asking this, do you think that by doing this, by creating a landscape like Lisa Murkowski's looking at in Alaska, that you are going to then marginalize?
How did Cenk and then this other guy, what was the name, Michael? How did they just skim over the fact that Andrew Yang said Big Pharma is an extremist left-wing group? Big Pharma, the radical left institution known as the pharmaceutical industry. And they're just gonna let that slide? And also he went into this thing with Alaska. Who gives, again, anyone who's going to boil anything down into one principle, Lisa Murkowski voted to impeach Donald Trump because of the open primaries. That's it, nothing else. There's no other reason. It's just those open primaries. It's a one-to-one. It's directly related. There's a lot, there's a confluence of factors in every decision, especially when it comes to politics. Anyone who's gonna try to tell you that, yep, it's the open primaries that did it, I'm sorry, but they're just dumb.
The extremes, and then where do they fit in? Where do the people that, the Democrats who are at the extreme end of the Democratic Party, where does their voice get heard at that point?
Well, one of the fascinating things that I explore in my book that Ezra Klein talked about in his book about why we're polarized is that the linkage between your political alignment and your policy stance is actually pretty low. And I learned this when I was running for president and talking to people in Iowa, where if you say to someone, hey, do you think drug prices are too high? They'll be like, yes. Do you want to get those drug prices down? Yes. You want the government to be able to do it? Yes. Do you like socialized medicine? No. All of a sudden, it's just if you bust out what seems like partisan or coded language, then everyone will be like, ah. So if you have a system where you're decreasing the extremity, then you're going to arrive at things that most Americans agree with, like the government negotiating lower drug prices on behalf of all of us. We all know that I champion universal basic income. I believe this is the path to universal basic income. 55% approval right now. You go to anyone and be like, hey, what do you think? Cash for people? And be like, yes. So to me, the problem right now is that if you have 10 to 20% of Americans really excited about something, that's not enough. We have to face it. So what we need to do is create a system where you have much more generalized alignment between legislators and the people, and not have 83% of districts.
Folks, I have no idea what the hell he's saying. Can we talk about this? He is off in his own world. This guy is in his own universe right now. Okay, so people want socialized medicine, but they don't want it because it's called socialism. And the answer to that is to not call it socialism. And that's how if we just call socialist healthcare not socialist, then we get it? What? I'm so what is this? The guy is on drugs. I mean, is he living in one of these fucking areas that just decriminalized psilocybin? What is he doing? You're not supposed to be tripping while you're doing an interview. I'm just saying, you're just spewing garbage. What is this? I really, what is going on here?
Whereas it's this side or the other side, and then you know what happens? Next to nothing.
Yeah, so Andrew, first let me just say about your comment about the extreme on the left. Let's just be clear, the examples you gave of the unions giving money to Democratic politicians and big drug companies giving money to Democratic politicians is not an extreme on the left, it's an extreme in the Democratic Party. That's the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, even if they're taking money from-
Okay, thank you, Cenk, for actually pointing that out. I was wondering, were they just gonna, Big Pharma, notable, radical, extremist institution known as the pharmaceutical industry, right? I love this comment at the bottom. Joe Manchin looks like a bird. I mean,
unions, it's still money in politics and it's still corruption.
Oh, no, I agree with you, Cenk. What I'm describing though is that if you have a relatively narrow corridor of the electorate that you're going through, then it's easier for a special interest to go in and be like, hey, let's get these people locked up than if you had to deal with the majority. Then it's harder.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't want the audience to get confused about that because the left hates money in politics, the actual left. So now, but let's stay on that point of the cultural divide and the extremes, because there is a massive cultural divide in this country, Andrew. So when you talk about economic issues, it's easy to get massive agreement without the talking points. Once you put in the talking points of the Tucker Carlsons, et cetera, then you're going to get disagreement. And it's based on just, honestly, propaganda, et cetera. Okay, but that's the easier part. The harder part is the social issues. So how in the world are you going to get people to vote for a party when the two sides of America, it's real. We don't agree with each other. One side says, hey, we don't want gay people to have the same rights as straight people. We don't mind cops beating up black people, and we think Black Lives Matter is offensive, right? And the other side says, I don't want to work with these monsters. I'm never going to vote for someone who can't make up their mind about those issues, and 1,000 other things, and the nonsense talk of critical race theory, et cetera. So how in the world do you bring us together on social issues?
Now this is a good question, because this is exactly what my big problem was with his forward party announcement PowerPoint presentation, right? Is that he's comparing right-wing extremists to left-wing extremists as if that made, the right, literally, they want to kill black people, they want to kill transgender people, they want to kill gay people, they want to institute fucking caste systems, they're all in favor of authoritarianism, they love spitting on homeless people. And then the left, the radical opposition to that is actually, we think all human beings are good. We think that trans people are cool. Black people deserve not to be killed by police. That's not, it's not the radical left is we want to kill all Republicans, which, let's be honest, given the fact that Republicans believe what they believe, I mean, hey, I wouldn't necessarily be immediate to disregard that position. But that's not a mainstream radical leftist position. The mainstream, the most mainstream and furthest to the left position is hey, by the way, racism, transphobia, bigotry, that's not cool. That's the mainstream radical left. That's the radical left as represented by the most amount of people. And the radical right wing are trying to overthrow the United States government to install a dictator who wants to kill black people with police violence. A dictator who wants to lock transgender people in intensive care, against their will because they're being abused or whatever, wants to provide medical experimentation on trans people. Someone who wants to make gay people second-class citizens. The fact that anyone would ever compare those things, it requires a level of psychopathy. You just have to not care. You have to look at trans people being assassinated and killed and assaulted and legislated out of existence, and you gotta go, I don't care at all. You have to look at gay people being murdered, look at gay people, getting spit on, being their rights being violated, being kicked out of restaurants, kicked out of buildings, right? Kicked out of housing, that's a huge thing. And you just have to look at that and you go, I don't care at all. You have to look at black people disproportionately being shot by police over and over and over again in this country. You have to look and see that and go, don't care. In order to make this grand, bizarre comparison that you can't go left, you can't go right, you gotta go forward. What does that mean? Do we only have to kill half the black people? Is that our compromise? Should we only kill half the gay people? Should we only allow people to transition halfway? What is the compromise with these radical freak Looney Tunes that just want to kill minorities? What is the compromise? There is no compromise. We saw that in the 1930s and 40s.
Which I view to be a much larger challenge.
Well, to take gay rights, which I think was your first example, I mean, there's actually relatively high consensus among Americans that gays should have equal rights, and that there's a relatively marginal group that right now is being elevated because of the fact that we have this duopoly that leads to the most extreme voices getting, frankly, disproportionate attention. I mean, right now you have political incentives that reward the extremes, then media incentives, to your point, reward the extremes. There's a relatively marginal group that right now is being elevated.
Much larger challenge.
Well, to take gay rights, which I think was your first example, I mean, there's actually relatively high consensus among Americans that gays should have equal rights, and that there's a relatively marginal group that right now is being elevated because of the fact that we have this duopoly that leads to the most extreme voices getting, frankly, disproportionate attention.
I mean, again, I live in a Republican hellhole. I can tell you right now, if gay marriage were somehow overturned, all these Republicans, they wouldn't leap to defend gay people. They tolerate some gay people sometimes, but I guarantee you, if there was a movement that would overturn the rights that gay people have gotten, which are not equal to straight people, I just want to be very clear about that, especially when it comes to housing discrimination, right? These people would leap at that opportunity, right? They just view it as not as important to fight about, right? Now, again, the idea that you think only a couple people, it's a marginalized group. It's a marginalized group that wants to treat gay people as second-class citizens. I mean, just 2 Republican presidents ago, they wanted to install a constitutional amendment to treat gay people as second-class citizens. The last Democratic president got elected on the campaign message that gay people should not be allowed to marry. Barack Obama won his 2008 election on the message that gay people are second-class citizens. So the idea that this is some solved debate, so it's water under the bridge, we're never going to talk about it again, is the same thing that people thought about racism in the 1970s. Oh, the Civil Rights Act passed, so racism's gone. There's no more racism. Didn't you hear about Martin Luther King? Yeah, I mean, I know he got killed, but didn't you hear he got the civil rights? The black people can go to the restaurant now. They can eat at the diner. Racism's over. It's that same mentality of thinking things are over when they're not. Look at the Civil War. All these people got left in the South, right? And they're like, all right, well, we just tried to literally kill each other over the right to have people as property. We lost. I guess it's over. I guess slavery is over. There's no such thing as slavery anymore. The conversation's done. Like, again, without any reckoning, without any reconciliation, right? These things are not, it's not water under the bridge. I mean, it's just not. Like, it's just not, folks. Like, I really need y'all to understand, right? If Trump were installed as king, I guarantee you, gay marriage would not last a second.
I mean, right now you have political incentives that reward the extremes, then media incentives, to your point, reward the extremes, and then social media pours gasoline on the whole thing. So if you have that as a dynamic, then it seems...
I do agree with media incentivizing extremism. That I do agree with, but it's always extremism on the right. That's all they do. The media only cares about promoting right-wing extremism. They never promote left-wing extremism. Never. Ever, 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 ever. Because left-wing extremism doesn't exist. There is no real left-wing extremism. It's just opposition to right-wing extremism. But either way...
completely intractable. But if you sit someone down and say, look, like, what can we agree on? It's much more likely that we're going to be able to arrive at consensus around even some very, very divisive social issues. And I'll use firearms as an example. You have like very extreme points of view. Obviously, I've talked to Americans of every background on this. And what I try and focus on is like, look, the #1 victims of gun violence are gun owners by suicide. Like that's number one. So can we agree on that is a problem, and then try and focus on that? Like that, there are elements that will enable us at least to make some degree of progress. But you know what's never going to result in progress is imagining that if we stay in our silos, that we're somehow going to overpower the other side. That, by the way, is just getting more strident.
But let's talk about that gun example a little bit, because if you speak to whether it be someone from the Brady Center, whether it be Fred Guttenberg, whether it be Senator Chris Murphy, and you talk to them, we want to find some common ground on one gun issue because that will be reasonable progress, incremental. It's not everything we want. And of course, they haven't been able to do it. They had a massacre in a preschool, and they weren't able to do it. Every day we wake up to it. I think it's noble. I think it's a great idea. I think hearing you talk about that and highlighting the suicides by gun owners being the #1 cause of death among of gun deaths is great. But there's also a challenge, and that's reality. And whether or not.
And that's the thing is, like, again, Andrew Yang is doing a good job talking about a lot of issues. But what the hell does the Forward Party have to do with gun laws? The Forward Party is going to be the secret cheat code. You're going to like open up the console and put like SV_cheats1, and then like it's going to load up the Forward Party. I'm just, what? Yes, you've clearly stated a problem. People kill themselves with guns. What does the Forward Party have to do with that? What is that even?
I'm not a naysayer on this. I applaud what you're doing, but I do think
also, yes, I know that there's a stupid motherfucker in the chat. I'm going to put them in timeout because they're dumb. Anyone, and I mean anyone, that thinks it's human nature to want to kill transgender people that do nothing to you or around you, anyone who thinks that's human nature, I don't know, like, look back 6,000, 7,000, 10,000, 20,000 years ago, and you'll see human nature. in the dawn of civilization, trans people existed. They were actually celebrated. In a lot of indigenous cultures, trans people were viewed as like spiritual people that could like, you know, cross like the fucking spiritual realms between the living and the dead, right? Like trans and gay people were worshipped in a lot of indigenous societies, right? Now, a lot of them did not as well. But the idea that you think that that's natural, that there's anything intrinsically like nature is like leaning in one direction over the other, that's just ridiculous. Like they literally built sculptures in countries like, you know, like Greece, for example. They built sculptures celebrating transgender people, right? There were stories written celebrating gay and transgender people, right? So the idea that you think it's like it's all taught. There are some cultures and societies that are extremely oppressive, absolutely, but it's not the default. That is not the default, and to claim it is makes you a stupid person. And so I'm just, in case anyone was misunderstanding that, this guy's a dumb motherfucker.
The fact that they're polarized, and I wouldn't even say polarized, the fact that the duopoly is the only way that power is able to be wielded these days, and it creates a stalemate, doesn't that make that a little more difficult than it ought to be for what you're doing?
And that is exactly what we need to change, Michael. So for those of you who are watching are concerned about our democracy, you should be concerned. I'm deeply concerned. And if you look around the world, UK, how many parties does it have? 5. Sweden, 8. Germany, 10. Netherlands, 18. If you have a system like that, do you really think that 9 parties would be against common sense gun legislation? No, you'd have much more variety of point of view, and you'd be able to get more done. It would also make the system much more resilient to authoritarianism. Because right now, the founding fathers never could have imagined national parties at the scale we have them. And then if you get a corrupt leader, guess what? Everyone's incentive is to fall in line, or they lose their job. Does that seem like an intelligent, robust, resilient system to anybody? You know, if you had even 5 parties and then one of them succumbs to terrible leadership, that's not an existential threat.
He's getting asked, how is the Forward Party going to solve this? The reality of the situation is duopoly. They've got a pretty good stranglehold on the situation. How are you going to solve it? And Andrew Yang pivots back to explaining the problem. We already know the problem. How are you going to fix it? That would be like if I hired a plumber and they go in there and they go like, yep, well, that's one leaky ass faucet. I mean, what we could do, you know, and they don't have their tools with them. Like, you know, what we could do is, you know, we could, you know, use the wrench and then we could tweak. I don't know anything about plumbing, as you can probably tell. But, like, they don't have the wrench. All right, where's your wrench? I don't know. How are you going to do that? I don't know. But we could do that. And we could get some duct tape. Do you have any duct tape on you? No. But we could. I mean, it's possibly good. Like, what is my analogy is horrible. But, like, what is the actual solution? Just saying Forward Party, that's not the solution. Yeah, the Forward Party. Well, how are you going to the Forward Party. How are you going to get on the ballot? The Forward Party. Are you going to be able to win anywhere? The Forward Party. Well, how are you going to go against the Forward Party? That doesn't, if it were that simple, the Green Party would have done this 20 years ago, but they didn't. They failed. So I don't know what this guy is talking about.
No, like that's where we should be racing as quickly as possible to make our system actually stand the test of time.
Yeah, so look, when you talk about the problems in your book, Forward, it's hard not to agree. I mean, we might disagree a tiny bit on some of the details, right? But overall, we have massive structural problems. The duopoly, in my opinion, sucks, and it sucks in the opinion of a lot of people. So there's a lot of folks rooting for you to be able to tackle this. But when you get into the specifics of being able to win with a third party, Andrew, it just seems that our divide is too intractable.
So one of the things that people should know is that this is an inclusive movement. You can join as a registered Democrat, keep your party registration, Republican, keep it independent, sure. And a lot of the races that we're going to be helping with, it's going to be in a Democratic primary, Republican primary. And is someone going to run under the Forward Party? Probably not, because it's not.
What? What? Okay, so we're gonna have the Forward Party, and the goal of the Forward Party is to not be in the Forward Party. What? 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 So what's the
party? Not going to be like super helpful to them from day one. Like that's one reason why task number one is to get to open primaries and ranked choice voting, so you can actually get different points of view, not just forward party, but again, movement towards this robust system that we all can see is what we've been missing. So, when you talk about like third party win, like there are obviously massive structural impediments, but there's nothing stopping an independent popular movement from supporting a Democratic primary candidate who's for open primaries and ranked choice voting, a Republican primary candidate who's for open primaries and ranked choice voting, ballot initiatives that can unlock our legislators from these extreme motivations, the way that Senator Murkowski's been unlocked. Let's unlock legislators. I mean, like that there are all sorts of, and we can do that in 24 states via ballot initiative.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound like a much intelligent, productive approach than banging our heads against the wall against this dysfunctional duopoly that is clearly broken?
No, but Andrew, look, there's two different issues, social and economic. Now I'm going to jump back to economic for a second, because when you say, hey, there's 18 parties in the Netherlands and there's no way that 9 of them would believe X, Y, Z. No, I don't think that's the issue. So I actually disagree with parts of the solution. I think what you're saying about ballot measures, third ranked choice voting, et cetera, I think that's smart. I think working within Republican and Democratic parties, within primaries is smart, so I appreciate you saying that. But no, if Netherlands allowed legalized bribery like we do, 16 out of 18 of those parties would be for high drug prices, low taxes on the rich, endless wars, you name it, they would all get corrupted. We have, the real problem in this country isn't that, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have gone awry. The real problem is that they've both gone awry because they both get bribed. So if you form a third party, by the way, as you're doing here with Forward Party, and I'm curious to ask you, so I'll do it right here, are you going to allow corporate PAC donations? Because if you do, your party will instantly get taken over by bribery as well.
You're pointing out the core problem, which is right now our government is overrun by moneyed interests. The Forward Party, right now, we're just passing the hat to grassroots donors and individuals. We don't have any design on taking corporate PAC money. If we ever did, we would be totally transparent about it. But I'm going to suggest that, people are going to give to the Forward Party just want things to get better and change. Like what the heck?
Okay, so it's a third party, all right, but you're not going to run candidates. Okay, great. That's good. You will accept corporate money, but you'll at least tell us about it. Like, what is this guy? What is he doing? I mean, like, seriously, what is this? It really sounds like this is just like a giant marketing, like this is like a viral marketing campaign for his book. Like, where's the Forward Party gonna be in a year from now? What? I'm just like, I'm baffled.
Nothing. Like, what kind of corporate PAC would be like, you know what we're gonna do? Like, the Forward Party is gonna, like we're the pro lowercase d democracy popular movement. Certainly, again, I'm practical. We're gonna need resources to get our work done, and hopefully we can get it done, get those resources from human beings.
But I think what Cenk's also asking though is like going forward, if I may, is that when you do get to the point, obviously you're starting out now. When you do get to the point that there are candidates who are running under the emblem of the Forward Party, are you going to make that a tenet of the party to not take corporate PAC money during an election? Has that been talked about?
One thing we will have as a tenet is total transparency around who's backing a campaign, and I think that's what people should expect.
Okay, Andrew,
I want to ask you a little bit about, let me just, one thing, going forward again, like starting it up, fantastic, exciting. I was talking to a Yang supporter in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, who after hearing you speak, and I asked, I was doing a story on it, and I asked that supporter, I said, what excites you about it? And he said, this person said to me, the newness. He said, though, he feels like it's a great first date, and he loves being on the first date, but he doesn't think it's going to go anywhere. What would you tell that Yang supporter about the Forward Party, that this is the first date?
That is so good. I talked to someone who supported you a year ago, and they said that they thought you were cool, but you're going to crash and burn. Now that you're crashing and burning, 2 failed campaigns later, what do you have to say to that person? It's so good.
Of the Forward Party, you have the book out. You got this momentum now, but where does it go? Where is it? If it's not going to make a huge splash next year, probably, but it may make a little one. How does it endure?
If we get some ballot initiatives across the finish line next year, I am going to be
great. No, absolutely understand that. But what about? I want to know about 5, 6,
I would say to that person is that Andrew Yang is a happily married man, which is that I go on the first date, and then you know what I do? I call you, and then we go on a second date, and then a third date, and then eventually, I meet your family, and then I get down on one knee and put a ring on it. I'm a high commitment fellow. That's what
I wasn't talking about Evelyn. I was really talking about.
Well, no, it's the same thing, which is like, look, you know, if you look up, like, do I think that the Forward Party is going to be everything that I want it to be, you know, in 12 months? Like, of course not. 24 months? Probably not. Like, you know, we're going to grind. Like, I'm a builder, I'm a grinder. Like, I've run organizations for years and years.
What is the like? That's the thing. Is like this. Like the Forward Party is just a viral marketing campaign. So they're not going to run candidates. They're not going to ban corporate donations. Got to buy his book. He's the leader. It's just a grift. It's a viral marketing campaign for people to buy his stupid book.
This could be the greatest, most important thing I ever do, you know, and if it's what I spend decades on, then great. Like, so that's what the happily married thing is about, is like, you know, I've been with my wife now for, 15 years. You know, I think I'll be with the Forward Party for an extended period of time to help it reach its potential, because we all know the country needs something just like this. And then I'm gonna take it the next level.
Why not just join the Green Party? Why not join the Libertarian Party? Why not join the People's Party? Why not join the PSL? What? What is going on here?
We all know that if someone was going to do it, like it would probably be someone like Andrea. I'd say, like, we're going to line up people who might do it. It'd be like, oh, new political upstart party. Like, you know, like I'd be a logical candidate.
There are a lot of.
Now that's just narcissism. Like, I'm sorry. If you like, this just proved to me that this guy's too stupid to live. I mean, like, what a dumb motherfucker. Like, I really, and I.
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ.
I really just, what the fuck are they doing? Like, so, okay, the Forward Party, not gonna run candidates. We support things that, like, left-wingers support, so we're a left-wing party. Except, if you hate trans people or black people, that's okay too. And we will accept corporate money. You can bribe us. Also, buy my book. And I'm married. Like, that's the Forward Party. Like, I don't... By the way, Big Pharma is a radical left extremist group. I'm so confused by this. Like, it's so... It's baffling. There is no information gained out of this at all. This is just like, I'm in a world of confusion. I mean, like, I gotta watch more of this guy's cringe tour. This is a cringe tour, folks. Ben Burgess, step aside. This is one hell of a cringe tour Andrew Yang is going on. But I mean, if he can get some ballot initiatives to get ranked choice voting in one other state, that's good. But I would, why not just do, like, why call it the Forward Party? Why not just do the ranked choice voting, like, organization? And why not just, like, do one, like, that's your main thing, you want ranked choice voting, we're gonna do that. And then, like, and move on to the next, why call it the Forward Party? Why, like, I just, like, what, it doesn't, I don't, why even? Why and also, what and why? I'm so confused. But at the end of the day,
Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ.
God damn, folks. What a world. Anyway, that's Andrew Yang. So